Well, hello. I mean, hi. I don't like to say hello because hell is in it. And I'm not welcoming you to hell. I'm welcoming you to King Pollys World. It's a very different place. At least I hope it is. It's me, King Polly. And thank you for joining us on a very, very, very special episode. We have now entered 2022 and life has begun. I'm joined today in our townhouse in Vegas by the great, the majestic Ginger, the golfing gardener, the king to my king, King Pollys Husband.
Hello. Thanks for having me again.
I'm so glad you could be here on such short notice.
Yeah.
You really came through. I had a fall through.
Good to be your filler. Your backup.
I'm grateful to have you and Luna at home on your lap.
Yeah.
The sweetest baby dog in the world.
On a rainy day. And a gloomy day.
I was just going to say that. We enjoyed a nice cloudy, beautiful fall day. And we're here to talk about something kind of heavy. It's pretty heavy. But we're heavy.
At times.
And
most of the time.
Well, we're both. We're heavy and light. We're all of it. We're everything, just like everybody is. Everybody is everything at different times. And so at this time, right now, we're going to talk about something that actually, believe it or not, was the connecting thing between me and you on our first date. A topic that affected both of us deeply. And when I realized that on our first date, it really made me kind of go, oh my gosh. Yeah, I think this is my partner. Like there's a lot of synchronicity here. And what that thing is suicide. There's no easy way to say that word. There's not really an easy way to talk about it, but it's prevalent and it's real. And I'm hoping with the distance and light that we've been able to find through it, that we can share our experiences and what comes to our hearts around it. Would you agree?
Yeah. My suicide was my dad was the one who committed suicide in 2008, and death. Just I feel like it was the most painful and one of the greatest things that happened to me and up until that point in my life. It was definitely a big paradox, and it was a crazy time in my life.
But did you know it would be one of the things that would end up being like a big motivator for you in life at the time?
I don't know. That's an interesting question. It was a big moment, and what was so eerie about all of it was like, looking back and just even in that moment, it was like, wow, like it just felt like I had been prepared for this moment, like so much. Like it wasn't like a shock or a huge surprise, I guess, like I wasn't super shocked, and it was almost as if like all these things that had happened prior to that prepared me for that.
I feel that so much. And again,
Like, it still was shocking. Like, I guess it wasn't like, it definitely wasn't that it wasn't shocking, but
right. Just
like,
there was a piece of you, which I think within all of us, there is that eternal peace that knows no bounds in terms of time.
yeah, I think if you're speaking to like just this kind of like, it was like kind of like this intuitive thing. And then too, I'm speaking to it now. What, how long ago was it now?
So that's interesting. 13 years.
Yeah, I was going to say 12.
Right?
So yeah.
13. And yours was in 2008.
In January.
In January with your father. And for me, I experienced the suicide of my best friend, Barbara Ann, in December of 2008. So I was at the end of 2008.
And I also experienced, I think it was 6 or 7 other funerals that year. And there was 2 overdoses and 1 motorcycle accident.
How old were you?
It's 28.
28 to 35. That's a big life cycle.
3 friends, and then, I know 3 friends, my dad, and then I know, like, it was like 2 older people that died. It was kind of just regular.
Were you present for them? Like, in terms of, like, for me, when I was younger, and maybe a distant person I knew died, right? Like, it was just, didn't really affect me. I wasn't really present. You know what I mean? Like, for that whole year, were you like, wow, what's happening?
I was so in tune, and I had such kind of, I feel like, a spiritual experience through my dad's suicide that it allowed me, like, I was like this being that was able to just be beside all these other people that were going through death through the remainder of that year. So all those other funerals, like, I felt like I was the most powerful person in the room, because like I could just go stand next to the person who just lost somebody. And because I had lost my father at the beginning of the year to suicide, and I had cheer and I had found joy again, like, just me being beside them was the most powerful thing. Like, I didn't have to say anything, and it just was like, they just knew, like, oh, this dude knows what I'm feeling right now at some level. So that was comforting, and so that was a crazy powerful experience.
Isn't it interesting that death is, in a way, right, a connector? Like, it is truly, as much as, it appears and feels like a disconnection, it is also very much a connection. Like you just said, like, you were able to connect with others going through it in a deeper way. And I feel that way once you cross that threshold, you are changed and you become transformed, right? In a deeper way. You get to connect to others in a deeper way. And two, not running from death, denying it, or pretending it's something it's not, but just like moving through all the stages of grief.
It is interesting to go through the stages of grief, and I feel like it does change. I mean, everything changes you, right? Like, but death is definitely one that changes you kind of deeply and at your core. And it resets you, it reprograms you, it gives you a different, I think, perspective on life.
And I remember you would always say, like, with your dad, it gave you a window into this reality that could be yours.
Very much so.
If you kept going down a certain path.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for him, with the suicide and the pain, like, I just always felt like he like just gave me this example of, he was just always an example. Like, everybody's an example. Everybody's a teacher. Everybody's teaching you. Like, some teach you what to do, and some teach you what not to do. And my dad taught me my dad taught me a lot. Like my dad was always teaching me, and I think the thing that made, I think, my dad's suicide painful for me was that, you know, it wasn't like my dad was a deadbeat dickhead. You know, like my dad was like my hero in growing up, and he was, you know, he was one of the people that saw me. You know, my dad tried to come home every night and give me back rubs every night. You know, my dad was, you know, the best in his profession. You know, he was the best dental technician in Vegas. You know, there was countless dentists that were like, you know, your dad just makes the most amazing teeth, you know. And
I could sure use some of his famous teeth right about now.
And yeah, and he was a bodybuilder. He ran marathons, you know, and it was just always fascinating to me. And he was just this, you know, 6'1", you know, 200-pound guy, and always athletic. You know, I shared about, you know, my memories of him at the gym. Like, he was this guy that would get on those power bikes, and he would set it to the max tension, and he would pedal on it for 45 minutes to an hour and a half. And we just, the dripping of sweat was amazing. Was just his strength, and then to see just such a man with just such power and strength just be so weak and unable to face the world, and then to beat up on himself so badly and to be in so much pain that he would take his life. It was just such a, you know, it was a very slow yet quick thing. And I guess like the Reader's Digest would be, you know, my dad, you know, I don't think he came from a very good upbringing, you know, and then got sober around 8 years old when I was 8. So he was 38. And then my dad kind of ended up somewhat relapsing every 3 to 4 years. I know there was like a little bit of like depression and Prozac in there. There was 2 treatment facilities that I had to go to at some point, like during family week, and kind of was exposed and open to that world. And then when I was 16, 17, my parents divorced, and when that happened, like, he kind of sold the business and he moved to California. And when that happened, like, he just never really kind of recovered from that, and he kind of came back and tried to get back in the dental field for a couple of years. And you know, it just, quick story is, he just could never recover from whatever he needed to recover from, you know, mentally, physically, and spiritually, you know, whatever. And he took his life in December of 2008. Yeah.
December of 2008?
January of 2008, January 28th.
I'll never forget when you told me that story. I just felt so connected to you and your vulnerability and your insight into. But wait, so I met you how many years after that?
2015, so 7.
7. 7 years ago. I met you 7 years after. And it's just so, it's so weird. It's so weird to talk about it because it always changes. Like I always have a new relationship with it. Like now it's 13 years later. And when I think about it, it just,
It sucks.
yeah.
Even I've done so much work and so much therapy and different things in writing, and am so grateful for it all. I found so much gratitude for it all, and it still sucks.
Mm-hmm. And that's one of the reasons why too, like I share, and I want to create and continue on, is this element of like being proof that if you keep going, like this element of like 13 years ago, I was very close to the same thing. After my friend Barb committed suicide, on some level, it's almost like that kept me from being able to. because she did, because I was able to feel what it felt like to be on the other end. And I just couldn't do that. And I'm grateful. I'm so grateful for her. I'm so grateful. I'm grateful for all of it, and and everything, and how everything's connected. And like you used to say, or you say, some fall so others can stand. Like that was part of her life path. Obviously it happened. And this level that she was the closest friend I had had, like me, since I was a kid. And we just connected. She was a Sagittarius too, and we just connected. It was so instant. And she introduced me to yoga, and then she went to India and brought me back an elephant necklace. And to little 21-year-old me, it was just the coolest thing in the world. Like she was a decade older, and I just learned so much. And to me, she was the wisest person. But I also saw the sadness. I saw the sadness. I experienced, so it wasn't a complete shock. But again, it is. It was. It is. And this element that always comes up, right, of blame. And the people left on the other end blame themselves. Everybody blames themselves. Like, I could have, I should have, I would have. And from where I sit today, I now recognize there's no woulda, coulda, shoulda. There is exactly how it was supposed to be. And I wouldn't change anything, but it is just such a wound, right? But as time goes on, the wound, again, like that Japanese art form where the crack is filled with gold, the wound is where the light gets in, and because she went before me, she helped me cross the threshold of death. And I was comforted literally the very next morning after it happened and after I found out. Well, I was actually comforted right away, of course. Because it was that next morning that it snowed here in Vegas. That was that morning. That was that day. And everybody, but of course I was in LA. So I got sent a lot of pictures of the snow, which I was happy about. But it was just like, oh my gosh, she made it snow in Vegas, is what it felt like. And that was the message my heart received. And that's when I started to realize that's where I receive communication, is through my heart. She opened that up. I'm sorry this isn't funny, you guys. But it's real. And also the really cool thing that happened the next day. I woke up. I lived in this little cottage in Studio City in this crazy lady's backyard. And it was full of spiders and it was cold and the heat didn't work. It wasn't on. I would ask her about it and she's like, I don't turn on the pilot light until January or something like that, right? So it was freezing too. And I woke up in the morning and I remembered that she died, and it just, it hit me just so hard, and I was crying. And I got up and I got ready for work, working on a coffee catering truck, and just miserable, right? And literally this thought entered my mind. I'm so tired of being cold. And right then, all of a sudden, there was this like rumbling, just behind my scarves hanging there. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? And all of a sudden, I feel warmth just wash all over me. And my heat had turned on. And it was then I knew that she was okay, that I was okay.
and that she would always be with me. It was just in a new way. And it was, over time, continued to turn into a gift. And I think of her with this, and she always believed in me and my creativity. Her and you, baby. Her and you. And my grandma. I love you, Barbara Ann. I'm grateful, and I think about her every December 17th, and I almost want to say every day she crosses my mind, but on some level, she's a piece of me. Thanks, babe.
You were making me recall, and I was sitting here, and I was feeling how when I first walked it, I had gotten somewhat of a phone call to go visit my dad's apartment, and they didn't tell me why. And I didn't know what I was walking into. I just thought it was, just going to be something that wasn't going to be pleasant. But it was interesting that, probably about a half mile before I got there, like this feeling hit me like, oh shit, like this could be, he could have actually ended his life. The pain could have gotten too much for him to handle. And then when I showed up to the apartment, there was a coroner's van in one or two police cars, I don't remember. And so when I walked up to his apartment, the door was cracked open, and I opened the door, and all I saw was just utter filth, and just lots of prescription bottles and cigarette butts and beer cans, and I just remember going like, wow, okay, that's how I could end up. That's how it could end for me. Like, I saw how it could end, and felt that could be my ending. And then it was like a threshold. I didn't walk into it. And then an officer came up, and I didn't go in, and I just sat out there, and I too remember thinking at some point within that day or within that week, just that gift of no more pain, and then to recognize that the only pain that was left was mine and ours, right? And it was so interesting to recognize that whatever pain was left was some element of like a past, like, because truly there was no more pain. And everything, what I saw, was like, it was now me. And like now, like, okay, like if you don't want any more of this pain, I remember hearing this voice, like when I would fight the pain and like just yell at God and be so mad. And God, I'd hear this voice that would say, okay, I'll make you a deal. I'll take away all your pain, but I'm taking away all the memories with it. You're willing to give up all your memories to have no pain? And I was like, fuck you. I'll deal with the pain. And it's like, okay, well then we'll get through this, son. We'll get through this.
God, it's so beautiful, babe.
Like like there's this cost. Like there's a price to play the game of life, and just and that one guy on Kerwin, that Australian guy Kerwin, I like that speaker guy, and I remember one of the things that he said when COVID hit, and it was naturally somehow gifted to me in this moment, and it was the phrase of just to always ask yourself, what's the benefit of this? What's the benefit of this? And it's not always easy to find, and it's not always gleaming,
and there's a lot of crying and blaming and bartering and anger
but it's interesting in that deep pain that I was able to somewhat see, okay, this could be me. Like, okay, like I got to deal with all this pain, and I got to accept all this and this loss. But, there was this other end through all of it in the back of my head that I was thinking, well, at least it wasn't me. Like, I don't know, like, or or I don't know, like just trying to like, okay, like he gave this to me, like this was a gift. This wasn't a curse, this was a gift. Like this was a gift. But I don't know, that's how I feel like I've processed a lot of my pain around it.
I've always had somewhat of the ability to see the silver lining. And I think that that is one of our human gifts and abilities. And just to see the wholeness of something, you know, not to deny the darkness. And up until Barb died, I had really denied the darkness. I had denied it. And it was almost like she blossomed the pain that was already in me and allowed it out. It's not that she caused it, right? She allowed a river from my pain to leave. And alcohol, you know, was involved. And that was the thing with her, and I saw that in myself. And I just knew that I, on some level, would need and wanted to not drink anymore. But that was just not a possibility at that time. That was how I coped. That was how I dealt with everything.
I think a big piece of my ability to walk through that whole situation was that I was not drinking at that point in time. There was no alcohol in my life. I don't know what it would have been like if there was alcohol in my life. It's a very interesting thing. It was a very interesting experience too. Like that going through that, just 2008, just without alcohol was just so eye-opening, and just it was just weird, just having to go through so much of life's things, just these huge moments
that you can't control, that are just happening.
And God is so good for me. Like God was always looking out for me. Like literally, like my only free time in that like whole like 10-year period was literally Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday during the day. And then God set me up to where like I was working, you know, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday nights, and then sleeping during the day. And then I had my kids to focus on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and I just repeated that, and I surrendered to being of service to a bunch of drunks on the strip that reminded me why I didn't drink anymore.
I definitely continued to drink. Like I just kept drinking and writing. It was a big time for me in writing and creating, right? And just really feeling the pain, like just sitting in it, being all alone in a city, in a shithole, one room, you know, across from the creepy ass Scientology center, and just dealing with a lot of it alone. It was a huge turning point in my life in a lot of ways, and it definitely prevented me from going down the same path.
Yeah, it was definitely a catalyst in my life, and it definitely made me look at like just my actions and my relationships, and just really made me focus on just wanting just to be a dad and just not really caring about much else in life.
So yeah, that's nice you had that.
Like I just lost so much interest in money, in like everything. Like I lost everything that I was chasing by the end of '08. Like, I mean, I just wanted to be able to fold my kids' laundry every week. Like I was like at such a raw space. Like I lost everything financially, you know, and then just all the death. Like I lost so much. Like I was just like, and it was so simple, and it was so pure, and it was so just so beautiful. It was so good. It was painful and challenging, but
That level of it really
so
reveals
pure.
the preciousness of life. Like it, on some level, like being present, like really recognizing, like, wow, I don't know what will happen.
Like I was down to like like I counted every dollar I made and every dollar I spent, and like I was just like just surviving, and just like I was so happy like that we were able to do a vacation once a year, and once I was able to take those kids snowboarding and just start doing simple things, like that's all I cared about. As long as I could, man, I just wanted to be a dad. That's it. Like that's like if I didn't have that yeah, I don't, that it rebalanced me. That they saved me. I don't know, give me purpose. I don't know. God. Yeah.
That's what like you couldn't write it. Like this element of anything I could dream up for my life, right? These expectations I had growing up that my ego thinks are good and that my ego thinks are bad. Like at the end of the day, like none of that is actually anything. Like I'm here to experience whatever this is. We don't even know what this is. You know, we say life as if it's just, oh yeah, how's your life going? And then when, you know, your head hits the pillow at night and there's nothing to distract you and it's just darkness, and you can connect and sink into, oh my gosh, I actually don't know who I am, where I came from, what is going on, other than on some level, like all of this is connected. And all of this is love. Okay. You know, like just, I feel like that is a turning point in life.
Yeah, I feel this desire just to speak to like anybody just going through. I know there's a lot going on in the world right now, and there's a lot of people that have lost businesses, homes, facing foreclosure, like all these different things. And 2008, I started with my dad's death, and then there was a whole bunch of other deaths, and then I got divorced in the middle of that year, and then we started a business, lost a business. The real estate market crashed. I went from having 2-3 homes in my name to having 2-3 foreclosures in my name, filing bankruptcy, and just felt like I lost everything, but I gained everything. Like it's not the end of the world. You really like, and even kind of revisiting it a little bit in 2020, like, when we were kind of crammed up in the house and I pitched a tent in the backyard, and it was really interesting just sitting out in the backyard, for a couple days and just being in a tent. And it was really interesting just feeling peace, just being in a tent, and just, an apple, a puppy, and a notepad. And it's like, do you really need much else? Do you really need much else?
There's something so beautiful about that. It's just so like it reminds me of being a kid, and it's like I have these few things, and that's all I need, and all day I'm in my tent outside.
And it's liberating to know that you can survive losing these things that we're taught or programmed or possessed in this idea that we can't survive without a thing or a person or a title or a job or these things. And it's like, it's amazing to me. Like it's been really nice to kind of sit in all this craziness and to not, like, I get swept away in fear and I get scared, but it's cool to know that I've gone through some things, and I know that we can get through this. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy, doesn't mean it's going to be comfortable. I might not get my favorite drink or my favorite meal every day, but like we'll get through this.
We might not know what is going on.
But did we really ever?
Exactly. And that's the element, is that, again, our foundation was built on something that wasn't real. And that's going to continue to shake and quake and crumble until we get to what's real, the real soil, and then we can bloom. But until then, we're built on shaky ground, and that element of when I look back at all these things that, I thought happened to me that really hurt me, ended up now being like, oh, like, thank you, God. Oh my gosh. And everything I thought I really needed to happen that didn't, I'm like, thank you, God.
Well, I know that I feel like I'm feeling inspired to speak to just, I needed a lot of support. And I got a lot of support at that time through being in support groups. Like I dove into therapy, I dove into recovery groups. There's a 12-step group for everything that you could possibly have an issue with, no matter what it is. And I had to get connected to a couple of them.
Me
There
too.
wasn't just one 12-step
Me
program
too.
that I needed to attend, or I needed to do some work in, and I needed to apply some things to my life. And yeah, and just having, like, there's meetings, there's fellowship meetings, there's churches, we're so grateful. I remember I can't even, being working graveyard and having like podcasts and having just things that I could listen to that were, I just remember being in the middle of Dre's nightclub, just dealing and just knowing that I was taking care of myself. Like no matter what was going on, like I was feeding myself what I needed to feed, and I was there because I was supporting my children. Like I knew why I was there. I had purpose. I wasn't there to fuck around. I was there to make my money, and I was trying to maximize my weekends, and I was trying to make as much money as I could in 3 to 4 days so that I could have those 3 to 4 days with those kids.
Totally. I love you. You changed position. You were right next to the microphone now.
Yeah. Sorry.
I had to get you back in line.
So yeah, life is interesting. I know a lot of people are just in it, and we had a gloomy day, and we had a little fear of death with with Yogi this morning. So it's
My sweet old dog. It just sunk
life
in.
is precious.
It's
Life is
precious, and what's really, really helped me in the last couple years is releasing the fear instead of clinging to it. Like when I feel it come in, like truly just not choosing it, choosing faith over fear.
I am blown away with how sensitive we are and how resilient we are.
Because 2008, a lot of shit hit the fan for me. I mean, it was a spiral. And like 13 years later, it's like, whoa. And I think that's one of the reasons me and you were able to walk through 2020, 2021 so well, is because of the other years that knocked us on our asses. Not to say we weren't knocked on our ass again, because we were, just in a different way.
And ultimately, I just feel like everything's just trying to get us to rely on God and not ourselves. And just to realize, like, this is all
Surrender.
this is all for us. It's not to hurt us. It's for us to stop relying and desiring these things
on
that
somebody
are meaningless.
on somebody else to be our salvation, or to be the bridge to God. Like to really empty ourselves in order to fill ourselves with what's real. And for a lot of people, it means unlearning the God they were taught.
I know I had to get humbled. I know for me it was humility in a lot of levels, and it continues to be my greatest teacher.
You constantly humble me. Every day I'm face to face with you, and I am just like, really, God? Okay, here we go. Every day you humble my ass. I think that's honestly our relationship.
That's what marriage, it's humbling. Marriage is like, again, you go to the altar to die. Marriage is a union with God so that you can die. So you can kill your ego and open your heart.
You've slayed the dragon. I am a dragon.
I'm a bull. Anything else? What else should we talk about in terms of that?
I would say,
Anything else you want to say?
yes. This element of one of the biggest things for me when I was suicidal, which I have been in my life.
Hopeless.
Many times. And it's hopelessness, right? And truly, we each have a divine purpose that is everything we could ever dream of.
And it's unique to each of us. And it is in our heart. And it is right there for us. Like, we each do have a beautiful purpose here. And we are literally living out our purpose as we speak. You know, this idea that you can make a wrong choice or be bad or wrong or not forgiven, it's not real. And that element of finding joy and finding purpose began for me in really just like doing what I wanted to do, what deep in me, right? And when I started to kind of come out of the darkness was 2014, and I just wanted to draw. That is the only thing I wanted to do. And I sat on the couch with my Sharpie and my notepads, and every night with my wine and my who knows what shows I was watching. Well, Judge Judy, Dexter, and that would be on in the background, right? But I was just so focused. There was no end in sight. There was no purpose to what I was doing, right? It wasn't like I was drawing to do something. It was literally because it was the only thing that felt good. And it eventually led me right here of starting to feed into my inner desires, my true desires, right? My heart, my soul. Not man, not ego, not mind. Not reliant on another. But just the simple things that since I was young have called me. And that gave me joy. And that idea of starting to do things not for the end result, right? Not for the fruit, but just for the doing it. That's what came up for me.
What's coming up for me was like I went on this like serious mission to just authentically try to love and discover myself, instead of trying to be cool or trying to like. I remember I started listening to classical music, and I would have never listened because I'd be too scared someone would catch me or make fun of me.
Wow, and that's like actually cool.
Like just being very open. Like I started doing like open mic stuff.
You started doing yoga.
So I went to my first, that was a huge thing for me. Like that was a crazy experience. Like I was so scared, and like, and my whole goal like was like, it was like a big thing for me. And I had like very specific intention that yoga class was to go there and to only see myself in the mirror. And the whole time I went there, like I never like looked at or cared about anybody looking at me, and like just stayed with myself on the mat, like showed up early, and it was like, it was the first time like I was able to do that for myself. Like, it just starting to love myself and starting to like, I remember like I had
be
this
uncomfortable too.
Well, I had this awareness because, around that time, like all this love and being a parent to these younger kids, like I started to recognize like I needed that same love that I was giving them. And so this idea of like, okay, like what about the 5-year-old, 8-year-old Sean? And then there was like 8-year-old Sean became my focus. And then I was no longer dealing with 35-year-old Sean. I was now a 35-year-old man nurturing 8-year-old Sean. And then every day became a conversation with the 8-year-old instead of a 35-year-old. And so my language started changing. I wasn't worried about like me looking good. I was more concerned with what that 8-year-old needed. That 8-year-old didn't need to impress a peer or to like, he wasn't interested in girls. Like I didn't have those desires at that time because I was trying to heal the little boy. And that really helped me a lot. And that really made me start to recognize like how awful I treated myself, and how awful I talked to myself, and like how much I didn't allow myself to just exist or be. And I kind of felt like that's, like being a kid and drawing. Some of that stuff for you And for me, it was just like kind of giving myself permission to like listen to music. It was like allowing myself to like just go eat, you know, to take myself on a date. Like to go sit somewhere by myself was like a huge thing for me. I had to like train myself and
I
do
went to
that
the
kind of.
movies for the first time alone that year after.
I would take myself on drives, you know,
Yeah.
weekly. Writing was really big for me at the time, and I started to read a few books. I got into reading. I never read before, and I think that's when I found The Shack. That's when I found Conversations with God. So like once I started to open myself up and become like all this stuff started to come to me. Like that's when I found Tara Brach, you know, like and you know I was in recovery. Like I just all these things started to come to me. I started the Tao, you know, Wayne Dyer, you know, all these just nuggets, all these amazing people just start falling in my lap. Like
Again,
these amazing things and like Conversations
they
with God
show
was
up.
is a
Your teachers show up.
and how these books came, emails, like you just start paying attention.
Yes, you get locked into a whole
When you get that email and it
synchro.
seems weird and it's like, you know what? Like fill it out. Like fuck it. Like what else are you going to do? Like spend the $299 and go do something for 3 days you've never done before.
Right before I met you, I went on that yoga retreat. I had never done that with my ex-husband, which was fun and funny and weird.
I think for me, I had the kids, you know, for me, the children were my blessing. Like I was able to just really dive into them and just that purity. And, you know, they were at the ripe age of just greatness, you know,
Thank God you didn't know me then.
and I loved it. I love being a parent. I love just doing those things.
I know you do. You're a wonderful parent.
I think a 10-year-old is my favorite person in the world to hang out with.
Right? 10-year-olds are the best.
Those are my favorite golfing buddies. I will golf with a 10-year-old over anybody any day of the week.
That's beautiful, baby. Thank you. I'm going to pull a top 5 randomly.
Ooh, that's a fun one. Let's lighten it up. That's cool.
Yeah. I'm going to lighten it up a little. I'm going to lighten your load, the load in your pants. Top 5 TV shows. I pulled this before, but I love it because I change every second. Home Improvement. Wow, look at you. I'll share that with you. God, I loved that show. I loved that show. I loved the wisdom of, what was his name?
Tim Allen.
No, the neighbor.
Wilson.
Wilson. I loved the wisdom of Wilson.
And I loved
humor
the secret of his
Tim
identity
Allen.
too. Like that was so cool.
That too. Oh my God, that makes me want to make something where, like a show where we bring that back.
Roseanne. I loved Roseanne.
When I was young.
Yeah.
But I never
don't watch
fully
TV
loved
now,
it.
so that's
I
all
never
I
fully
can go
loved it,
from.
Roseanne.
I haven't watched TV in like 10, 15 years, so that's all I can draw from.
Family Matters.
Yeah.
I loved Family Matters. I loved TGIF, obviously. I loved the Disney Channel. I loved Judge Judy.
Different Strokes.
I had seen every episode of Judge Judy. I can't watch it now, though.
Different Strokes was my favorite.
Webster. I loved Webster.
Alf. Alf was,
I loved Alf. Oh my
really
God.
cool.
That's funny. For the next 20 minutes, it's just me going, oh, I love that. I love.
Ooh, and any like reality like
like Arrested Development, The Office. Those are obvious ones for me. Cheers. When I was little, I loved Cheers. When I was little.
I just thought
MASH.
of MTV Cribs, and then what was the one when I was kids with Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous?
TRL. I never missed TRL. And Oprah. I loved watching Oprah after school.
Yeah, I liked Oprah too.
I felt like she was my mom. I was like, please
Yeah, anybody just trying to
be
talk
my
about
mom.
the feelings, I was seeking that shit desperately.
Yeah. And music video countdowns. I loved music video countdowns. Nothing set me, like, you know what got me in a bad mood on a Saturday morning? When I was like 10? if I woke up after 11
Mm-hmm.
because
You
I
missed all
missed
the
the
cartoons?
countdown. No, I missed the countdown, the VH1 countdown.
Mm.
And I would just be so sad and depressed and like, do, 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 do. I knew I should have set an alarm. That's what I get for trusting myself. Well, that was fun. That was beautiful. Do we have a shout out of the week, baby?
Yes.
All right, everyone. Wipe the tears away. It's our shout out of the week. It's time to play. Say It Big LV. You can follow them on Instagram at Say It Big LV. Rental signs for your yard.
Birthday,
Wow.
happy anniversary.
Like really cute big signs
Yeah.
that our friend
Graduation.
owns.
Like they come, they set them up in your front yard. It's like
SG Las Vegas.
a couple feet tall. Real cool stuff.
Yeah.
Real nice guy.
So if you need a
Super
sign.
nice guy.
Anybody need a sign out there in the Vegas area? You want to rent a sign? Oh, look at Luna yawning. Beautiful. All right. I wish I could play the sound for the closing statements.
Closing statement. It's not how high you fly, it's how well you bounce. Anybody can have a good attitude on Sunday after church with your favorite Starbucks drink, but let's see you do it when your ass is falling off, you know? And some fall so others can stand. Everybody's a teacher.
Thank you, baby. Thank you, King Pollys Husband. You can check him out at King Pollys Husband and at Love for Golf. LUV for golf. My closing statement today. You guys know that I like to live by the seat of my pants, but it's only because I've learned how to fly. So what comes to mind when I think of closing statements for today on such a heavy episode? I would just want to say I love you. I love you, everybody that is listening to this, watching this. And on some level, we are all impacted by death during this life experience. And my heart's with you if that's a little heavier today or these days than before. But if anything, I hope that us just sharing our real experiences 13 years later has somehow helped. I love you. King Pollys World is here. I mean, just watch some of the videos I've made. There's a lot of videos. I'm trying to make you laugh. That's all I want to do. And cry, apparently. Because crying is really, really good. And for the first part of my life, I didn't know that. And I hid my tears and I kept them all inside. And I literally swallowed my feelings. And so I've spent the last few years having to get everything out that was trapped. Physically, mentally, spiritually. And that's the only reason I'm able to talk to you today. Because I really don't know how to talk as a human. Believe it or not. Ask my husband.
Yeah, you really don't know how to talk.
I don't know how to talk. I don't know how to communicate. But here I am. I'm really trying. It's proof that I'm just a vessel. I'm a vessel of God. None of this is me, okay? 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 Because I don't know what's going on either. This has been King Pollys World. Have a groovy day. Peace.
God bless.